Welcome to week 7. We're almost home, but not quite there, so stay focused, stay strong. This week we'll talk about the communicator's pivotal role as a change agent. I've been in many organizations that instituted major changes, and the lead communicator plays a key role in those changes. Because think about it, leaders need communicators every day, but it's especially critical when there's change. That change needs to be communicated, and we play a key role in the effectiveness of that change. All right, we're going to start with Dewhurst and Fitzpatrick, chapter 9. They offer this insight that talks about how people make change happen, or they don't. The idea is that you're not going to change the organization unless people are willing to change. That's where we come in. We help communicate the change in a way that inspires them, encourages them to support that change, and to take the action to change. Remember, change is uncomfortable. You are going to face resistance. Accept it, learn to, or find ways to acknowledge the discomfort, to get feedback from employees. Remember that two-way communication. And in the end, remember, we play a key role in the effectiveness of change. Change is just part of the job. Even if there's not major change in an organization, you're going to experience some change just, as a matter of due course, right? I mean, things never stay the same. And if they do, I would be concerned because it means your organization is not learning. They're not learning, they're not growing. If they're not growing, they're dying. Okay, so if you are complacent and have been in an organization that hasn't made change, or within your own life you haven't made change, that's a cause for concern. We should be changing. Change is natural. Okay, while leaders and project teams like to focus on stuff, right? It's pretty easy to change, IT systems, processes, organizational design. Much harder, however, much more important to change people, or to involve people in that change. Again, that's where we as communicators play a critical role. Also keep in mind that people's behaviors are strongly influenced by context and circumstances. We owe it to our employees to understand their own circumstances, excuse me, and to appreciate the context in which this change happened. Did they already go through a major change last year? Is this the first time they're hearing about this? Put yourself in that other person's position. Always consider the audience. That's a key for any communicator, but it's especially critical when we're talking about change. Okay, Miller chapter 12. I like this line. Building a better website equals keep it simple. Now, this should sound familiar. We talked about it earlier this term, about how the simplest websites are often the most effective. You have to have it. You have to have your website built in such a way that the end user knows what they're supposed to do, where they're supposed to get the information, how does this solve their problem. All those critical measurements that you're going to be looking at, and the most important one is how simple it is. Keep in mind, people don't read websites; they scan them. You know this yourself. Next time you visit a website, take just a moment to reflect on what your actions are. You're not sitting there reading from left to right as if it were a book. You're just looking on the website, looking for what you want to find, maybe exploring a link or two. And remember, the easier it is for your customer, your viewer, to get to the information we want them to have, or we think they want to have, the better. Another key point about a website is to think about above the scroll versus above the fold. Now, this harkens back to the days when we had newspapers, especially newspapers that were in newspaper racks. Some of us may remember those things. And a newspaper folds in half and it gets placed in that rack. And as people walked by, they would see this newspaper above the fold. And the photo and the story that went above the fold was, the news of the day. Did your story make it above the fold? Now, keep in mind, that's critical, because if you want to sell a newspaper, you've got to grab people's attention, and you've got to cause them to take action. The action back then was to reach into their pocket, pull out a quarter or 50 cents or whatever it was, put it in there and pull that lever so that they could get a paper. That's the importance of above the fold. Well, very few people get hard copy papers anymore. The days of feeding coins into a meter to get a newspaper are rare. But today, people are on websites. Instead of above the fold, we say above the scroll. So what information do you have that's available to your viewer before they have to scroll to get to more information? It had better be the most important information. And remember, importance is defined from the viewer's perspective. Why are they visiting your website, and how do we help them get the information they want as efficiently as possible? Some other good advice that Miller gives us is to stay on script. I've seen people start off with a very nice website, and then they want to add one more thing, and then another thing, one more thing. Remember, it's our organization. It's our website. We think everything's important. Not so. If everything's important, then nothing is. The less said, the better. And then the final piece of advice is phrased in a question. What is your call to action? Not what you're acting upon, but what is your call to action to the viewer? What is it that you are asking the viewer to do? What problem are you trying to solve for the viewer of the web page, and how do they get there? Okay, that's it for this week. Again, we're almost to the finish point, and I know that there's a tendency to start looking over the horizon. You've done great work throughout this term. Many of you have another class coming up next term, and you're looking forward to that class, and I appreciate that. That's natural, but finish this one first. So make sure you continue to stay ahead with all assignments, stay engaged in the discussion board, and of course, always enjoy your time of learning.